So you have this great project idea. You've brought it to all your AI subscriptions on the web, and you develop a plan. Now you have a file that lives on the internet, and now what? If you were like me, you didn't know what to do next. You just had all the AIs working on the web, gathering all these fun ideas, and you had no idea whether or not they were going to work, how they were going to work, because you're not a developer, you're not a coder. Neither am I. So let me introduce you to something called Claude Code. What's all the hype about Claude Code? What does it do? How does it work? Not the deep technical sense, but how can someone like you, who has no prior history of coding, or you might not even be technologically savvy, how do you get it to work for your ideas? Well, I'm going to kind of walk you through a project that I'm working on and kind of show you how I use it. Might not be the right way, but it's been working for me lately. So stick around and find out. If you remember our last video, or the first video that I posted, I kind of walked through the iterative process that I go from idea. I use a console of different large language models on the web to kind of iterate on that idea. And then the output of that is some sort of an artifact, some sort of document. In this step, we're going to take the artifact, the plan, and we're going to bring it to our local file system. The local file system is just this. It's just your normal directory of files on your computer. Why is this important? Because it gives the files life. It gives them somewhere to live. They're no longer ephemeral, and they live on your hard disk. And before the CLI, command line interface agents came out, you had to do all the development on your own, all the coding on your own, and there was different skills. Cursor came out in late 2023, which kind of gave you a brief AI access to file systems, but never in the command line interface. And then finally, when Claude Code came out, it was groundbreaking, because everything here you see in these files, if you open up Claude in your home directory, Claude can see all of these. Not only can he see them, he can read them, he can write them, and he can make decisions for you. So that's why developers love using Claude Code, which is why I love using Claude Code. Not because I'm some sort of Anthropic fanboy, but because they've made it very intuitive and very easy, very approachable for people who have little to no technological access prior. So let me back up to my project here. I went through an iterative process, and it left me over here with a design document. Now this design document started as an idea. We brought it to large language models. We iterated. And then now what I'm going to do is download it into my project. This specific project is called PyRN, and the sub-project that I'm working on is the chart. This is going to just live in, one second here, live in here. PyRN, pie chart. Save. Okay, the next step is we're going to go to our terminal. If you're like me, I didn't know what a terminal did, but it's how you control your computer. This is a new terminal window. Right now what's flashing is this is my root directory name, and this is my username. This is ARC and the B-link. Now you can just ask AI how to use the terminal, but to open up Claude, I already have it downloaded. You can go online. For instance, here, how to install Claude Code. You just go to their website. And it's very simple. Mac OS Linux, you literally copy this and you put it here. Paste like that. Press enter. And it'll walk you through the onboarding. I already have it installed, so I'm going to type Claude and press enter. Now you're giving it access to this workspace, which is my home directory. Do I trust this folder? Yes, and I trust Claude with all my heart. This is what it looks like. There's a bunch of options. You can play around with it. But for our purposes, this is how you start running Claude Code. Now, this is running at my home file system, so it has access to all of my files. If I wanted to start over and give it access to just my project, you go CD, and then the name of your project folder. And not only that, but I can CD, go inside not only my project folder, but also the sub-project inside the project folder. You see this, all this is doing is the same as clicking here. So I'm at my home here, and then I go to PyRN here, and then I go inside PyChart here. Now, when I type in Claude command here, it's going to open up inside of this directory. And this goes back to context management. What I'm saying is I want you to open up inside of this project, right? Now this will look a little bit different than what I opened up in my home directory because there's no memory. I have a memory plugin added, right? It's saying session startup in PyChart. There's only one recent context, but there's no previous sessions found in this project yet. Okay, this is good. Now all I have to tell Claude is, hey Claude, I recently iterated on PyChart and came up with an artifact called /design.md. It can be found in the directory. Can you please review it and plan for implementation? And before all this, I read through the actual file, and I made sure that this is exactly what I wanted to build. Effectively, what's happening here, after iterating with my original prompt, which can be found at the very top of this chat context, right? This is my original prompt. Okay, and then we iterated, and then now I downloaded it to my local file system, and now this file becomes my prompt. And all I have to do in Claude Code is direct it to the file for my prompt. Now, one thing I forgot to add up here was /plan. See, it highlights blue because that's a tool use or a skill. Okay, and then I press enter. Okay, we're back at it after it's been done thinking, going through the plan. It brings up a couple questions for me. It says the design's parsed, 3 clarifications needed before final plan. How much of this roadmap here should the plan cover? Does it just want the phase 1? Do I just want phase 1? Deep plan for multi-agent sessions, patient scope, phase 2 to 3, get 1 line deferral, smallest removable. Or do I want 1 and 2? Phase 2 primitives with new link types, fulfills addresses. I just want this one here. And then is this data set already staged somewhere local or is still... I do... but I'm just going to tell it it's abstract. The design flags ICU staying coding is open. Which direction? Keep as an open item, resolve just after phase 3 coding. Honors that don't freeze on. I'll do that. Okay, and submit. I just kind of wanted to give you a little a rundown of what happens while it's going in plan mode, because it is different than sometimes working in the web interface. But really a lot of the same ideas here. So I'll pause and then I'll come back once it's done with its plan. One note here, while Claude is thinking, bring this over here. I thought it might be a good idea just to kind of give an overview of the process of kind of where I started and kind of just a brief rundown. Okay, so what I started with was an idea. I brought that idea to the AI and the web. This AI in the web distilled it and then produced the initial spec. Very important during the distillation, asking to tease out keywords. This spec then I brought to a council of different LLM providers. Their outputs then I bring back up to the original and recycle. After that, it might be 1 or 2 turns. Then we get our design. So this here, I would call phase 1. This is just my ideation phase. And then now, what we're starting is what I would call phase 2. This is where the design turns into the prompt, and we bring it to the command line interface and our local file system. Now I kind of walked you through of me already having my project folder set up, but honestly, to learn, all I did was just ask Claude Code. And it was very simple, like, hey Claude, I'm setting up a project. I'm not familiar with the local file system. Can you go ahead and just scaffold a beginning project for me? Put it in my home directory, and then it'll just do it. You don't know how to you don't even have to know how to do it. But it seems crazy because it seems very simple, but I had no intuition of even just coming in here, making a new folder, right? And then what? And then it's like ideas, like what do you do? So just have AI help you with it. That's the magic of what Claude Code can do. So I'm just going to walk through kind of what I do once this planning session is done. So Claude Code I just have running default. There's various different add-ons and skills you can kind of augment your setup, but I just have it running default. Claude Code is going to output a plan. Okay. I'm going to have him execute the plan. Which means that he's going to change files in my local file system. As he's making those changes, I can look at the progress here. So everything he's doing is in these file systems. Once that plan is done, he's going to give me a summary. Then what I do with the summary is I bring it to Codex. All Codex is Anthropic has Claude Code. Okay. Codex is OpenAI's. Same command line interface. This is GPT 5.4. Claude Code is Opus 4.7. I use Codex as a review. And all I'll tell Codex is, hey, I pointed at design.md, and then Claude did this. I'm sorry. Codex, I'm going to point him at design, right? This is what Claude executed on, right? It produced a summary, and now I'm asking you to review it. Codex will go through the design MD, look at all the file changes that happened, and then Codex will output its own review. After that review is back, right? You see the picture? Okay. And then I come back to Claude Code. Right? This is where we start. Plan, execute, summary, Codex, review, start over. Now inside Codex, what I have is, oh, and it's just landed. I have an add-on called OMX, or Oh My Codex, which does a bunch of different fancy things. Super helpful, burns a lot of tokens, but I don't use it for my planning phase. It has a lot of sub-agent spawning, uses a bunch of different skills, anti-slop, stuff I don't understand the developers made. But that is something I use in Codex. I just use the default Claude. Okay. Now, this brings us to the plan that was made. I'm going to read it. Primitives, memory deferred. Really, I'm just reading the headlines to make sure that it's not going to execute on something that I don't want. Do I read every single word every single time? No, but this is what the value of doing this aggressive iteration in the front end is for. I can be sure that our prompt that it was following is pretty close to exactly what I want. It builds tests. I don't know how to build tests. There's scripts. changing the schemas, all the TypeScript changes. And then this part is deferred, which is what I want. Okay. And then it says, Claude has written a plan, is ready to execute. Would you like to proceed? I'm going to say yes and use auto mode. This will probably take about 30 to 40 minutes. And I'll come back and resume once that's there. But I hope this is helpful, to see kind of phase 1 and phase 2. From idea to design output, bring it to Claude Code, and then the cycle of my development work. I wanted to just cut in here. We're 25 minutes into the plan. I think it's just important to be honest about things that you don't know. Right? I don't know how to write TypeScript. TypeScript is the language that most of this project is being written in. And so, to begin looking at these TypeScript codes, I don't exactly know what to do, but this is the thing. And this is what makes the iterative design process so important. I do know what I explicitly asked for. I know what I want with the product that I'm building. And I know some of the changes that we've gone through. And so I'll scroll up to the top here, and I'll try to follow along. Where is Claude Code going into? Why is it going into it? And what are some of the changes that it's making? And then, I just look for clues. So this is my original plan here. Okay, what file systems did it go into? Right, already off the bat, I didn't want a systemd. Okay, it's looking at extensions. I don't want it writing extensions. Okay, so as I scroll through its changes, I'm going to look and say, is it making changes to the extensions? Because if it is, that's going to be a problem, right? So I'm going to go down. I'm just updating the types of the source script. And then just pay attention to some of the things that it's working on. Right? This is a consistent error. It's running into a simulation clock versus a real clock. So it's going to make changes about that. It's making changes from a chart route to a patient route. Okay, these are things that I put in my prompts. So I'm looking for those. Some of the notes it leaves itself. So it leaves agents hints, and then what to reference in the code. So I guess my point is that, this is a good way to learn. A good way to learn of what is it that I'm asking for, and then how does the computer make those changes that I'm asking for. More clock references. And sometimes it's really valuable because you can catch little loops that it'll get into. It doesn't know, like this here, these. I don't know anything about 6-patient isolation, right? So it's gonna, why does this keep coming up? And it's running into some sort of error here, where it's not matching. Okay, invariant 7 watchdog, inconvenience for humans. See, it'll leave little notes, which is interesting. It'll leave little breadcrumbs for itself. It should never bleed into agent-authored events. Warn if author ID. Okay, so this is just talking about the actual runtime function of the chart that I'm building. More clock references. More TypeScript. Okay. I'm just going to make sure it's not going into something that I don't want it to go into. Anyway, I just wanted to make a little a blurb about that. Okay, look, and it landed. And just like I predicted, it's going to put out a summary. So phase 1 landed. Migrated layout, holds all data, rewritten, okay, that's pie chart. Okay. Every public read, write, validate function takes patient scope. instead of bare chart root rescope. Okay, that's something I explicitly asked for. Validator invariance. Okay, this is what it brought up here. Added error message name the invariant. Cross-patient link resolution naturally fails because state all ID is partition per patient. Okay, so it needs patience in the simulation, is what it's saying. Real chart. Pass 78 out of 78 tests. Add 4 new tests. Okay, and then it ran the actual program. Okay, and so it's clean. Now the only problem with this is it'll game itself, right? It'll write the test so it passes almost. So this is where it becomes important that we need to cross-check with a different LLM. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm actually going to I think I'm going to have Codex review this. And so Control C. I have Codex opened up. Hey, Codex. Claude is working on implementing design.md. He has finished stage 1, phase 1. Do you mind reviewing his work? And I'll paste what? The summary? Oh, that was from the where was it? Here, Control, copy, paste. Now, Caveman Lite here, this is one of the add-ons that I have downloaded, and it'll actually truncate the output of the model because it can be quite wordy, and it's really not helpful. And so you can find that online, Caveman. But it reduces filler, hedging, pleasantries, keeps full sentences, is professional but tight, technically accurate, and then you can actually reduce it further too. Very helpful for Codex because of the OMX skill that I have added. Like I said, it can burn a lot of skills or a lot of tokens. So. Now what you can see though, part of the codec or the OMX skill is that it runs all of these kind of scripts and it routes to subagents by itself. So it's very hands-off. It'll just kind of do its thing. If you point it in the right direction, it's like shooting a cannon. Very effective, but you do have to be careful with it. So once that's done, I'll bring it back to Claude and then I'll continue working. I don't know that we need to go through the entire process. This is what it's like. And so if anyone's interested in using Claude Code, they don't really know how to approach it. This is what I do. I start at the web. I distill a plan. I get a design doc. I bring it, download it into my local file system, bring it to Claude Code. It develops a plan. It starts. I bring that to Codex, rinse and repeat. And so far, that's been very helpful. And then the only other last part is when you run into slop, just start over. It's easy, approachable enough. As long as you're learning on the way, I think that's what's most important. So, all right, take care. Sorry, one more take. I just wanted to cut in here just to kind of like show you how the process is working and why it works so far, right? So if I just stopped on Claude Code, right? Phase 1 landed. Are you ready for phase 2? Okay, I would have, oh, sure, it looks great, right? But then Codex reviews it and it says, these are highly significant findings, right? And then you can read through it. Recommendation request changes. Okay, so I take this back, right? I paste it in here, and then its answer, it doesn't, findings valid, fixing each, right? And so then it'll go through and it develops its own plan to fix. But that's why it's super important to have an outside perspective, especially if you're not familiar with coding. And it's likely that this code looks to a developer like shit. But what I found so far is with the council method, you can greatly increase your odds of producing something of value. And then the final note is that my focus on primitive scaffolding is very intentional because as the models progress, your capabilities, as long as you learn how to decompose your ideas into actionable insights and how to properly maintain context and properly prompt the engines to do what you want them to do, then I think the future looks very bright. So anyway, I'll stop there.